Welcome, Gamecock Club members. This is Steve Eigenbrot. I'm joined by our athletics director, Ray Tanner. Appreciate you tuning in and the chance for us to catch up with you and do a little Q&A. We reached out to our Gamecock Club membership this past week with an attempt to try and get Coach Tanner some questions directly from our membership. The challenge of having over 13,000 members of the Gamecock Club is that would be a really complicated Zoom meeting for us to all set up. So we felt like this was a really good way for us to reach back out and let y'all know that we miss you and that we're thinking about you. And I know there's still a lot of questions out there that need to be answered, but we're going to take our best shot at trying to answer some of those this evening for a little bit. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to the boss man, Coach Tanner, for some opening remarks. Coach Tanner, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Eigenbrot. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to tell everyone that we certainly appreciate your many years of loyalty and support of our student athletes and our coaches. I already miss you, although we're not even into the fall season yet, but my apprehension does concern me. But I do want to say thank you for what you stand for. You've been with us for a long, long time, and I know we'll get through this. We don't know the calendar and how it's going to shape out, but we'll get through this and we'll be back to where we were before and trying to continue to win championships.
Thanks, Coach. I know everyone wants to talk about the fall, and we'll certainly get there, but let's start the conversation off tonight and answer some questions about the summer. As of right now, one of the questions is what student athletes are back on campus, and how has COVID-19 screening worked for those that have come back?
I could give you a real long answer, but I'll try to condense it. We had a tremendous protocol in place in our return to play as far as our student athletes were concerned. So many people were involved in this, did a wonderful job with football. George Wynn, Director of Football Operations, Coach Muschamp was involved, Judy Van Horn, John Kasich, all of our trainers, our epidemiologist on campus. So we set up a protocol to safely return as far as social distancing, masking, the testing, the workout in clusters, the hanging out in clusters, to try to make sure that if anybody contracted COVID-19, we'd have a chance to have it in a small cluster and we could quarantine those people that might be affected. It has worked. Our numbers were not real high ever, but they certainly are at a very, very low point right now. And we're excited about that. It took the organization, but a commitment from our student athletes that this is a serious disease. And although sometimes you're young and you don't think a lot of things affect you, they have accepted the responsibility of the things they need to do. So our football program is back in full force. We returned on June 1st. We started our conditioning, our weightlifting, and now we're working out in groups that'll probably ramp up a little bit more next week. Our women's basketball team is back in town. They've gone through their testing, and they're getting ready to start working out. Women's soccer is back. Men's soccer is back. Volleyball is back, and we're in a very good position as far as our testing is concerned. We did have some positives, but not in an excessive number. So we feel like our protocol has been superb. I've shared that with our member institutions in the Southeastern Conference and some people around the country about what we did and what our protocol was, because it was something that we'd never been through before. But we were very, very much prepared, and it has been effective.
So Coach, along those lines and the concerns about the student athletes, one of the questions that came in was, will players have the option of not playing because of their fear of coronavirus? And I know we've talked about that a lot internally, so I know you've got a good answer for this one.
Well, I do. Not only did they have an option, it's just like, a fan coming to a game. You come if you want to come, and you don't. If you don't want to come, you don't have to. And we'll talk about that maybe later on. But the student athletes and their scholarships will be honored if they choose not to play because of COVID-19 and maybe some of the unknowns. We hope that we'll have more information in the weeks to come. But we've announced it internally already. The Southeastern Conference has officially announced it as well, that all scholarships will be honored, and those student athletes who choose not to play will have that right. and we'll allow them to continue going to school either on campus or remotely.
Coach, as we transition to talking about the fall, and a lot of the questions are obviously about football season, as you might imagine. One of the questions, September 5th has been a deadline that's been etched in all of our heads for an exciting reason, and we'll see how that one plays out. But the question here is, has stadium construction moved along despite COVID-19?
Well, you know better than anybody, but it has. We had an opportunity when really everything was shut down mid-March with the COVID situation upon us. One of the questions, not only on this campus but statewide, was are we allowed to continue construction if we have a project underway? The state did grant the authority to continue. So Greg Hughes contract construction continued to move forward, and we'll be ready to go. Should we be able to kick on September 5th, we'll be ready to go. Fantastic amenities have been added to Williams-Brice, so I know that our fan base will be excited to see what we've been able to do.
All right, so transitioning a little bit into the $1 million question, and I know there's still more questions than there are answers as it relates to the fall and a fall sports season, but there's a myriad of questions that dance around this. But can you talk a little bit about the options that are on the table for the fall as it relates to really the start of all of our sports, football specifically, playing some sports in the spring, some of the issues that are circle around pushing to the spring, when a fall startup date might look. I'm just going to kind of open it up to you. I know you've been on a lot of SEC meetings talking about this stuff.
Well, as we sit here having this conversation toward the end of July, as you would expect, we've had the opportunity and the time to look at a lot of different models if they in fact are necessary. Our commissioner, Greg Sankey, his leadership in the Southeastern Conference, our president and chancellors in the SEC have been involved as well. So we'll be prepared. We would love to continue and play our 12-game schedule starting September 5th against Coastal Carolina. But should we have to pivot, we will be able to do that with different models that we have. You realize that some conferences, some schools have already come out and made decisions. We always thought, even from the beginning, that we should wait until the last possible minute based on what our medical experts tell us. Maybe the leadership that we get from a governor's standpoint, because he can control what happens with attendance in our stadium. But we wanted to wait till the last possible moment to have to make a decision. And that's what we're going to do.
So, Coach, if the conference were to get into a place where we allowed the season to move forward, 12 games in the fall, or maybe it's some sort of hybrid model, but there were not fans allowed in the stands. One of the questions is, what are the financial ramifications that would come with that, and could the athletics department survive a football season without fans in the stands?
Well, certainly it would be an option for our fan base and people that have purchased season tickets. Should they choose not to come and not feel safe in that environment, we would obviously give a refund to those people that are just not comfortable if that's the path that they choose to take. Talking about our finances, it's going to be a strain that we've never experienced before. I believe it's been probably, as I enter my 9th year as a director of athletics, and Eric Hyman was here for 7, I believe. So it's probably been more than maybe right at the beginning of Eric Hyman's tenure where we were unable to meet our operating budget. We've been in the black ever since then. This year, it does appear, according to what happens, that we might not be able to meet that threshold if there is some postponement. I don't say cancellation, but postponement, and maybe our full season is not in play. We've got television content to look at, and we've got live games with our fan base, season tickets, and so forth. So there's a lot of pressure to make our ends meet financially, but that's not the all-end-all. The all-end-all is the health and safety of everybody that is watching or listening today, of our fans and donors, but especially our student athletes and coaches that would be playing, even if there aren't any fans in the stands. So there's a lot of things, but going back to the finances, we're going to do our very best to maintain our Gamecock Club memberships. I know some people will make donations and not accept their ticket refunds, but that is to be determined. But please rest assured that anyone who's not comfortable that has purchased season tickets, those refunds will certainly be in place.
That's a good segue here. This question will reiterate that a little bit, but the second part of it, I think, begs your attention. If you're afraid to attend because you're over age 65 and do not want to attend games, what will happen? Can your money towards tickets roll over to next season, or will it just be a loss? And obviously, you just identified the fact that we would, in fact, have some refunds on the table, but we're also going to move forward with the opportunity for fans to roll their money toward the 2021 season ticket as well, so that we don't have to go through the process of refunding folks. All right, Coach. Part of the reason why football in the fall is so much fun is because of tailgating. So one of the donors asked, if we are allowed to attend games in the fall, will tailgating be allowed in the fairgrounds in Gamecock Park per usual?
To be determined. That's part of the pageantry that we all experience with college football in the Southeast on a Saturday. I know that one of our member institutions has already made a statement that there will not be any tailgating. I don't have an answer right now with that scenario. I would just tell you that until further notice, and it's going to be sooner than later, a decision will be made on how we approach this season from an SEC standpoint and the University of South Carolina vantage point, because a lot of those decisions will be made internally. Some will be made at the conference level, but some will be made internally, and that is tailgating and social distancing and the opportunity, whether it presents itself or not, or whether we allow every parking space to be used or not, or we social distance, from a car standpoint to give people a chance to tailgate. So those are some of the questions that we can't answer today, but we'll certainly be prepared if we have an opportunity to move forward.
And Coach, you said internally, but in that instance, it's probably institution by institution and local public health officials as it is, internally within the athletics department. Is that correct?
It is correct. I mentioned earlier that the city of Columbia, the state of South Carolina, is still under emergency order, if I said that correctly, which prohibits large gatherings with the governor's vantage point. So he would have to give us permission to have fans at a football game if we social distance or if there's a different number. So that's where it would start. But once you get past that standpoint, we would lean on our medical experts to provide guidance. Williams-Brice Stadium does sit in the county. It's not in the city limits. So that'll have to be dealt with as well. But there'll be a lot of entities involved in a short period of time. And let's hope that is the case. That means that we're making decisions to play. We realize that our COVID statistics are not exactly what we want them to be. We'll have to make those decisions at a later date. I said this earlier, but I do want to reiterate that the student athletes that we have on our campus right now that are working out, trying to prepare for fall seasons, they are very healthy. They are in a good place. The statistics, the testing, the protocols have worked, and they do not resemble the statistics that you see in the news every single night. So that's a good thing. That doesn't mean I'm telling you that we're going to move forward because that's what it is, but I will tell you that we've been able to successfully integrate our student athletes back into campus and doing their workouts.
All right, so along those same lines, if we are able to play football in the fall, or maybe in the spring for that matter, and have fans in the stands, questions along those lines: will there be mandatory mask and temperature checks to enter the stadium? We have hand sanitizer stations available at Williams-Brice Stadium on game day.
We will have all the bells and whistles that you've never seen before, with ingress and egress and the opportunity for concessions that maybe didn't exist before, the restroom accessibility and the social distancing from that standpoint. Masking probably will be strongly encouraged to do masking in the stands should we get to that point. Just for safety purposes, we will encourage that. Will it be mandated? I'm not sure that will necessarily be the case, It may or may not be. We'll be advised on whether that's something that we have to put into our protocol. But we'll be prepared to move forward. And I know I've said that many times, but that's what we've been doing these last few months, is trying to make sure that we're ready to segue if we have an opportunity.
All right, Coach. Last couple here. We had over 500, and I think if we would have asked them all, we probably would have lost our entire audience by the time we got through the first dozen. But this question comes from someone who's clearly been watching the news and the world of college athletics. If we play conference football games only, will we add more games from the West, or how would that work out? How many games total might we play?
So you're asking me to get in trouble with the Southeastern Conference office right now?
I think it's your jurisdiction as to how honest you'd like to be in answering that question.
I would tell you that we have models based on what we're dealing with a health and safety standpoint. We have models to maybe space out the season. We have models you can all over the map. I mean, a lot of people have opinions. A lot of people have shared their opinions with me on what we think we should do. Some people have said, well, let's just play in the spring. If we knew that there was a vaccine, if we knew that there was medication for this virus, that may be a strong consideration. We still don't know all the answers. So we will move forward in the fall. Am I saying we're going to play? I'm saying the schedule right now has us moving forward. But it could go a variety of different ways. It could be conference only at some point. But we haven't made that decision as a league. And as I said, the presidents and chancellors are very much involved in the decisions that are made. We will try to maintain our rivalry game with Clemson. That gets asked all the time. That's part of our conversations. It's not just us and Clemson. It's Florida State. It's Georgia Tech. It's Kentucky, Louisville. So there's a lot of people that are involved in this type of decision. So we will do our very best. If you're talking about a crossover, if we played 8 games, it would be the 8 games that we have on our schedule. If we added games and played more than 8, well, then there probably could be some schedule changes. Will be some schedule changes should we go to 10. But there's all kinds of different modeling that we could experience when we get to that point.
Along those lines, there were some questions asked about Olympic sports and some of our other sport programs. So can you talk a little bit about where the SEC is as it relates to the start of fall sports and how we've kind of pivoted there in the last week or so?
Well, what we did with our fall sports, as you know, our first scheduled football game is September 5th. And in soccer and volleyball, there were some schedules that had some scrimmages. And actually, Coach Shelley Smith's team, women's soccer, opened up August 20th. I think our men's team opened up August 28th. So we have allowed those teams to continue to train and condition and practice, but we've held off outside competition scrimmages and any type of official contest until at least September 1st. So everything now is probably aligned with football within a few days.
Thank you. All right, 2 more here to end on. Schools like Furman and Stanford have cut athletics programs due to financial deficits. Is South Carolina in danger of losing any of its sports programs?
I think that, to be very honest, you want to never say never, but that's something as a director of athletics that doesn't rest well with me. I realize that it's a new normal. I know that we're staring in the face of potentially losing tens of millions of dollars. I don't want to reduce the opportunity for student athletes to compete. Currently, we have 21 teams. That's not a high number. You saw where Stanford cut 11 sports. Well, they were at 36, so they were at the other end of the spectrum. Most of the schools in our league are somewhere between 16 and 22. We're at 21. So I can't say that it will never happen. It's my wish that we continue with the sports that we have and nothing changes from that standpoint. A young man or young woman comes here to compete in their respective sports, and one of the hardest things in the world would be to tell them that we no longer offer this opportunity. That doesn't prohibit them from transferring and going to another school, but they're Gamecocks. So we're going to do everything we can to maintain the current sports that we provide.
All right, and the one I want to end on here, I know you and I have had a bunch of conversations about this, so I think it's a good one for us to discuss. What accommodations, if any, will there be for Gamecock Club membership, since members are at the risk of receiving little for their membership dues in 2020 if seasons of competition are canceled for our Gamecock student athletes?
Well, I'm not sure I understood exactly the question. If you will try one more time.
What accommodations, if any, will there be for Gamecock Club membership refunds, since members received potentially very little for their dues in 2020-21 if seasons of competition are canceled for our Gamecock student athletes?
Well, we will make accommodations. As you know, you and I talked about this, and the opportunities are to all the people that are tuning in today. Your loyalty counts. We're not trying to put rules or guidelines in place that's not beneficial to you. The one thing that I would add, if we do have a scenario that none of us like, I don't want to be pessimistic, because I feel like that at some point we're going to play sports. Is there a possibility there could be a postponement? Certainly, in maybe more than one sport. But I don't like the word cancellation. So we want to maybe advance and see where it goes. But the Gamecock Club membership, ticket sales, the seat license, all those dollars are important to support our student athletes. And I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to have our Gamecock Club membership alive and well from one standpoint specifically. And that's the opportunity for our young men and young women to continue their pursuit of their degree. Because even if there is a delay, postponement, whatever the case may be with their sport, they're going to continue to go to school. There's going to be some online learning. There's going to be some in-class learning. That could change as well. But we'll continue to honor those scholarships for all our young men and young women that want to be student athletes. As we experienced last spring, from spring break only, they were just students. And that worked out very well. That was a success for our GPA. Was the highest it's ever been. So proud of what they were able to do. But we will certainly honor all of our membership to the greatest extent. And that's the way I think it should be done. Might not be done across the country that particular way, but we will do that.
Thank you, Coach. And I guess we'll end it with one question here and a chance for you to offer some final remarks. But your thoughts on a timeline of when some things might crack and develop here as it relates to more news from the Southeastern Conference?
Well, as we're talking today, we're a few days before the end of July. My feeling is that when we get to the end of July, so we'll use July 30th as a date, give or take a few days, I think there'll be some concrete news that comes out of the Southeastern Conference office from our presidents and chancellors in conjunction with our athletic directors as to the direction that we're going to take in the weeks to come. I would even like to wait a little bit longer to make a decision, but I think at that point, logistically, it's important that everybody knows what direction that we're going to go. Some things will have to be logistically in place for us to do that. So I feel like that's the timeline that we're working with right now. President Caslin has been very active in his role in Southeastern Conference, and we met in person this past week in Birmingham as athletic directors, and we're on 2 to 3 days a week with video conferencing for an hour and a half each. So we've put in a tremendous amount of work to try to be prepared to provide the very best opportunities we can for our student athletes. The Southeastern Conference is the best, and we want to try to remain in that position, and that's why we really haven't moved like a lot of other conferences, maybe some schools have across the country. we're going to be united. We're going to try to be the most prepared that we can possibly be to move forward when the opportunity presents itself. Not compromising health and safety of student athletes or anyone, but we've got to take a look at the medical advice that we have. We have a Southeastern Conference medical task force that we lean on. We've got professionals across the country that we're talking to, and health and safety is number one. We talked a lot about sports. We're not putting that aside. So we'll have the up-to-date information and projections about health and safety, and then we'll make some decisions for our fall sports.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say on behalf of the Gamecock Club, very much appreciate the fact that our membership took the time to ask, like I said, over 500 questions of Coach Tanner, and hopefully we picked ones that those that are viewing feel like were informational. Getting back to Coach Tanner's question he talked about Gamecock Club refunds and season ticket refunds and the like, I know as a department we've always said that we're going to do the right thing. As it relates to the Gamecock Club refunds, I've had some conversation with our Gamecock Club executive board that would ultimately have to approve whatever policy it is we roll out as it relates to those refunds. But I know, Coach Tanner, you've said it time and time again, we're going to do what's right. The fact of the matter is that scholarship bill is going to be there for our student athletes, and we're going to have to pay it regardless of what sports are played. So there will be some challenges, but I know it's kind of dyed in the wool in the way you do things, and that we're gonna do what's right for our fan base. And there's going to be a letter that comes out that will vow to our fans that we're going to start moving forward with some of the refund requests if we need to go there here in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to make sure that we continue to do the right thing. We know that there's folks out there that have been very loyal to our program that need those monies back, and we're going to start processing some of those and move forward, provided we have a little bit of direction from the SEC as to what our season might look like. So appreciate everyone's patience. I know that these uncertain times can be certainly frustrating. Hopefully these Coach Tanner's time and answering a couple questions was helpful. And Coach, I'll give the mic back to you to wrap it up.
Well, in closing, and you said it, you can't go wrong if you do the right thing, and we will do the right thing because of our loyalty to you, your loyalty back to us and our student athletes and our coaches. We've enjoyed some times that we've celebrated in a big way, but you have been there through thick and thin for many, many years. When I first started coaching here, our football program was really going through a tough time, but we still had great attendance. And our recruits that came in loved the atmosphere, although we weren't winning that many games. And it made such an impact in the recruiting wars when you have that kind of loyalty. And we're talking about you. And that's the thing that's most important to us and what you mean to us. So I know you'll be with us, you'll stay with us, and we'll get back to waving the flags and the towels, and we'll have a big time. And let's hope that we can do it sooner than later. So again, thank you for your loyalty, and go Gamecocks.